to part 3 of the Just a Little Tutorial brush lettering series. It's definitely been a hot minute since our last lettering tutorial video. So before we dive into part 3, let's briefly recap our last sessions. Throughout this series, we've been learning one of my favorite hobbies, brush lettering. Parts 1 and 2 were heavy on the prep work. So we learned about some different lettering supplies and how to create different line weights, like thick and thin, using different amounts of pressure with your pen, and how to create the 7 basic strokes. So if you missed the first 2 parts of this series, you might want to go back and watch them, and I've linked them down in the description for you. Or if you just want a refresher, you can go watch those again. So now that we've had a few months to practice all of our basic strokes and getting down the different pressure with our pen, it's time to start putting them together, to start writing one letter at a time. I know, learning lettering is a bit of a slow burn, but when I was first learning, it was this part, putting the basic strokes together to form letters, the alphabet. That was my absolute favorite thing. It made me fall in love with the art form, and it also really was like that aha moment when it really all started coming together for me. So I'm really excited to share this part with you. So whether you are following along with the tutorial to learn this new skill, or simply watching for fun, tingles, or relaxation, I hope my honest to goodness enthusiasm about this subject makes it an enjoyable experience for you, and also relaxing. So we do have a lot of letters to get through, so let's review our supplies and get started. Alright, so the supplies this week are pretty much the same as in the last video. All you'll need is some smooth paper, which you can learn about in the first video, and some flexible tipped writing instrument like these Crayola markers right here. So I'm just using regular broadline Crayola markers. Alright, I also have a pencil here to take notes and to mark up my work. And an eraser just in case. I've got 8 colors of markers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 for each basic stroke, and then 1 for the full letter. So you can do 8 colors, or you can just pick 1 color, or do whatever you want. So finally, I have the practice sheets that you can print out using the link in the description. And I'll be using these to do all my letters today. So, just as a reminder of what our basic strokes look like, I made a little cheat sheet right here, which I would encourage you to do if you are struggling with remembering all of them. And I've done one in each color in the order that I taught them to you. So I can keep this out for reference as we go through the alphabet. I'm just going to fold it down to take up less space. Okay. So we'll just slide that one under here. Like that. Very good. Okay. Yeah. So, as I have been saying on repeat for this entire series, we use the basic strokes as building blocks to create individual lowercase letter forms. So, what do I mean by that? Let me show you by starting with the letter A. Gotta rotate my page. I should mention before I get started that I have already gone through and done some warm-ups. So I just did each of the basic strokes, for an entire row, and that's usually plenty of warm-up, especially just for writing the letters. If you're following along, I would strongly suggest you now and doing some warm-ups yourself. Okay, got that out of the way. So let's take a look at what an A looks like. As I create each letter, I'm going to build it out basic stroke by basic stroke. So I'll be changing colors so that you can see exactly how the letter is formed. And then I'll do one letter in just black. Okay, so our A is going to require an entrance stroke. So let's get out our entrance stroke color and put that on the paper. So there's an entrance stroke. Okay, and then next in an A is an oval. So I'm going to grab the oval color, which is this gray, and we will add our oval right next to and touching the entrance stroke. So what we want is we want the thick downstroke of the oval to slightly, ever so slightly, overlap the entrance stroke. Okay, so let's try to place it so that will slightly overlap. Beautiful. So you can see the placement of the overlap is about midway up the side of that downstroke, but it kind of depends on your style where you want to overlap. I like it to be a nice shallow entrance stroke like this. And depending on where you decide to connect your strokes, you'll either be creating much wider lettering or more narrow lettering. So I tend to favor more narrow lettering, which is why I overlap it more. So the final stroke in an A is an underturn, which is this beautiful, beautiful, what do they call it? Hot magenta. Okay. And so we are going to ever so slightly overlap the oval with the downstroke, but not as much as we did here, because we still want this thin upstroke to be obvious that it's indeed a thin upstroke. So I will start it right here, and boom, there we go. So when we put all of those together, just in one color, it looks something like this. Entrance stroke, oval, underturn, and there's an A. One letter down, 25 to go. Alright, so now that we've created our first A, you should feel free to practice a few more of them if you'd like. I'm going to head on to letter B, but just feel free to pause the video, take a little sip of coffee or tea, and just chill out. There is no rush here. No rush. Okay, great job. Moving on to B. So B is composed of 3 strokes, but we're going to reuse one of them. So of course we're going to start with an entrance stroke. So we'll do a nice entrance stroke. And then the next stroke in the B is this ascending stem loop right here. So we'll grab our beautiful battery charged blue. And we're going to place it so that the side of the downstroke overlaps slightly with the entrance stroke, just like with the A. And I didn't really love how thick that line came out, so I just thickened it a little bit. Okay. Our next stroke is an irregular stroke. It's a reverse oval. So, our normal oval goes counterclockwise like this, but the oval in the B is going to go clockwise. So we're going to start kind of toward the bottom left, work our way up for a light upstroke, and then heavy down, and then light up again. Let's put it into action so you can see it. Starting near the bottom, reverse oval up, down, and then connect back. It takes some getting used to switch your oval like that, but it's a beautiful and elegant stroke. So the last part of the B is just an exit stroke. The A has an underturn, which automatically has an exit stroke, but the B doesn't. So we're going to just add one to the end like that, and that way we'll be able to connect it later. So now, to do the full letter, we're just going to do our entrance stroke, our ascending stem loop, our reverse oval, and then our exit stroke. As you can see, it looks very similar to a cursive B. Just remember to lift up your pen after every single stroke. That's what makes this form of writing different than like cursive. With cursive, the idea is that you want to lift up your pen or pencil as few times as possible, usually only to separate words or to do crossbars or dots. In this style, every single line that you draw is an individual drawing, essentially. And we connect them all together by using spacing and technique. So, just a reminder to lift up your pen. Okay, so the next letter that we're going to do is C. And this one's pretty simple. It has an entrance stroke, of course. So we'll grab the pink and draw our little entrance stroke. And then it also is going to have a bit of a modified oval. So a C obviously is not a closed circle. We want it to be open like this. So we're going to start just like we would with an oval, but instead of closing it, we're just going to let the oval come out in an exit stroke. So I like to kind of do this. You can do it in a couple ways. This is the way I would do it. So I would start like an oval, slightly overlap that entrance stroke, and then stop. And then you can add in an exit stroke, just like that. Alternatively, you could go entrance stroke, and then complete your entire oval in like almost a modified underturn like this. So you can decide how you want it. Ultimately, this is probably the most consistent with how you would actually write the letter. So it's probably how I would recommend drawing it. And then when we do it in all black, I'm going to continue that line in one single continuous motion. So I'm not going to lift up my pen right here. So for that reason, I would go more with this one and less with this one. But if it helps you to think of this as an oval that's not connected, then you can totally do this way as well. Okay. How are you doing so far? Good. I know it's a little tedious to go through and do all these letters, but once you really get the hang of composing each letter and you memorize the little formulas for each one, then putting together words and sentences is super easy. So I would really encourage you to spend the time and put in the time to learn the individual letters, just like we're doing right now. Alright. So let's go on to D. So D is almost exactly like a B, except we're going to swap these two strokes. So we will start with an entrance stroke. And then we are going to do the oval. However, this oval is a real oval. It is not a modified oval. So we will just try to, just like with this A, we're going to try to overlap a little bit to look very consistent with the A. And then we add our ascending stem loop to get that beautiful back side of the D. Okay, so we want it to connect, we want it to kiss this line, but not necessarily overlap it, if that makes sense. So I'm going to start my ascending stem loop slightly to the right, and when I bring it down, you can see that it's just barely kissing right there without actually overlapping it. And then we will end it with an exit stroke. Now you could absolutely continue this on in one continuous motion as well. And I'll show you with the black pen what that looks like. So, entrance stroke. Now sometimes you may notice that I don't go all the way up to the line with my entrance stroke. It's because I know I don't need to, because I'll be covering it up. So, and then now I'm not going to lift my pen as I transition from the ascending stem into the exit stroke. It wasn't perfect. You can see that I have this little notch here, but it's pretty good. I would like to show you an example of what it looks like if you cover too much of the upstroke of the oval. So let's do the D again. And this time I'm going to put my ascending stem loop too close. Okay. So in this D, you can see that the inner shape is like a backward capital D. It's very straight on this line and like pinched like this. Whereas this one is like a nice oval in the middle, just like with this A. We want to maintain that nice oval shape, even within like the C's. So this D also has a nice oval. That's why we want to keep the downstroke of the next stroke pushed out. So it's just barely kissing right here, because it just looks a lot more elegant this way. However, if you prefer this, you can absolutely practice this way as well. Lettering there are no hard and fast rules. What I'm telling you is just how I learned and what was suggested to me. Okay, so don't put too much pressure on yourself. It's supposed to be fun. Alright, our next stroke is E. Our next letter is E. So we're going to, as always, start with our entrance stroke. And then E has another modified oval. So an E is almost exactly like a C, except we're going to start the stroke on the back side and curve it all the way around to form an E. And then just like with the C, you can choose to separate your strokes into an exit stroke, or you can choose to carry it all the way through. So in this case, I think I'll carry it all the way through. Okay. So we're going to start around like this and then curve back around into our oval. Beautiful. You can see, just like with my A, I overlapped that entrance stroke about halfway down the downstroke of the modified oval. So, all in one color now. Entrance stroke, modified oval with an exit stroke. Not too shabby. Alright, next is F. Now this one is pretty irregular, but of course we will start with our entrance stroke. So I'm going to start with a nice entrance stroke. I'm going to need this again, but now we're going to need the ascending stem loop and a modified descending stem loop as well. So this one can be a little tricky, especially because it's a very large letter. So a lot of people prefer to modify their ascending stem to be larger on top. So instead of starting right at the midline here, I'm going to start low. I'm going to start down here. I'm going to carry it all the way up, back down to overlap, and then instead of stopping at the line, we're going to continue it down past the line, almost to the next line, and then we're going to loop it back up to touch itself, okay? So I'm going to pretend like I didn't lift up my marker, keep it going around, loop it back up with a thin upstroke, and then we can add that exit stroke. Make sure you really extend the exit stroke out so that your next letter isn't going to be too squished. So some people don't love how that looks. It's just, maybe it looks too big compared to the other letters. So you could also do a more traditional ascending stem, the smaller descending stem. But I personally think this one looks a lot more like an F. So Fs are kind of awkward in my opinion, but they do open themselves up for a lot of variation later, so they're kind of a cool letter, even though they're not necessarily the most beautiful on their own like this. Alright, so our next letter is G. And G is going to use 3 strokes as well. Of course, we're going to start with our entrance stroke. And then we're going to use our first descending stem loop. Actually, excuse me, we're going to be using another oval and then our first descending stem loop. So we'll grab our oval gray here and overlap that entrance stroke. And then we're going to grab this purple, which we have not used yet, and this one is, what is this, ultraviolet. And we are going to add our descending stem loop right onto the G there. And just like with the D and the B and any other letter where you're connecting strokes, we're not going to cover up too much of this upstroke in the oval. We want to keep that a nice graceful thin line, so we'll just go right next to it, almost touching. Well, actually, yes, touching. And we'll make our descending stem loop. And then you could choose to pick up your pen at this point and draw your separate exit stroke, or you can carry the pen motion through that entire stroke. So that's what I'll do with the black version. Okay, so entrance stroke, lift up, oval, overlap, lift up, descending stem loop, don't lift up, right into the exit stroke. Okay, so you can do it either way. Both look good. Okay, we're doing awesome. We're almost, we're 6 letters from the middle. But so far I think we're doing really good. You're doing a great job. So our next letter is H, of course. So guess what we're starting with? Big shocker. We're starting with an entrance stroke. And now the H is going to use an ascending stem loop for the back line of the H. So as with like the A and the G, we're going to cover part of the entrance stroke when we do our ascending stem loop. So, okay, and stop right at the line. And then we get to use our first compound curve of the day, which is my favorite stroke. I love this one. We're using electric lime for that one. So, we're going to start right at the base of the H, of the ascending stem loop, and then we're going to just gracefully create our compound curve. So that is what an H looks like. So you can see that my compound curve is a little bit pinched compared to this one. So I'm going to try to widen that out just a little bit when I create the all black H. Overlap slightly, lift your pen. Compound curve. So you can see there's a little bit more space now, both in this section and this section than there was here and here. In fact, they got kind of pinched over here. So it's always a good idea to examine and reflect on your own work, especially when you're learning, but always when you're lettering, it's never a bad idea to take stock of what you're working on and see how you could improve. So moving on to the I. The I is a pretty simple one, but it does have 2 strokes with our entrance stroke. And then we're going to be doing an underturn. So it's been a while since we've used the underturn. We used it in our A. And the body of the I is an underturn. So I'm going to start it right over like this, like a beautiful underturn, and then I'm just going to use the same color to dot the eye. Okay, so if we look at that all in one go, it's a very simple motion, just an entrance stroke, overlap it with that underturn, dot. And I'm smoothing out the bottom of my curve because I lifted the bottom of my pen too soon. Or marker. I know, I always say pen even though they're markers. Alright. Now we are moving on to J, the letter of my first name, Jess or Jessica. We're going to start, of course, with our entrance stroke, as always. And we're going to need this again. You could either choose to use this or connect. And just like the G, basically, we're going to do the descending stem followed by an exit stroke. So I prefer connecting, so I'm not going to draw the separate exit stroke like that. So I need a descending stem, which is purple. So we're just going to go a nice heavy down, graceful curve back around, exit stroke, and then of course we got to add the dot. Try to move that up just a little bit. Okay. And next is K. So we're going to grab our beautiful, what is this? This is hot pink for our entrance stroke. I'm going to just draw this here so you can also see that that could be an exit stroke if you so chose. Oh, and I didn't do the black version of the J, so I'm just going to cover that one up with this, just like this. And then we will do the graceful, just like that. So there's our J. Okay, now we are doing K. So we'll do the entrance stroke. And then we're going to be using so many of our letters that have this long stem type thing on the back or front. It's the same stroke. It's that ascending stem loop. So I'm going to grab the blue, that battery charged blue, and we're going to overlap our entrance stroke and just stop. Now we've got a strongly irregular shape, so I'm just going to use black since there are no strokes that really capture this particular shape. The K can be a little tricky, but it's very similar to a cursive. We're going to stop at the bottom of the ascending stem loop, come up, and then fold it back down around for a heavy line, and then again an exit stroke. I'm just going to draw it, and hopefully you'll understand when you see it. Starting at the base of this loop, come forward with light pressure, and then apply heavy pressure for this line right here, and then slightly light to heavy pressure, and then we're just going to end it in an exit stroke. So you could have definitely lifted your pen here and made this an exit stroke if you prefer. Alright, so let's see K all as one color. Entrance stroke, lift the pen, ascending stem loop, lift the pen, come back up, now heavy pressure, and pressure into that light release in that exit stroke. So the K is tricky to nail, but it is really pretty once you figure it out. So again, if at any time you're struggling with some of these letters, make sure you're pausing and just practicing it a bunch of times. The only way you'll really get a hang of it is to practice it and to assess your own work. So now that let's just finish out the first half of the alphabet and then we'll take a look at what we've done so far. So next we have L. So we'll do our entrance stroke. Just gonna have a little black in it now. And then L is of course going to be an ascending stem loop followed by an exit stroke, which I am going to leave attached in one fluid movement. So ascending stem right into that exit stroke, and the motion of connecting an ascending stem to an exit stroke is almost exactly like an underturn. In fact, it should look just like an underturn. So if you want to think of it like that, a ascending stem underturn. You totally can do that too. So here's how it looks, just in one color. You can see I haven't been gradually lifting my pressure at the bottom, so I don't get that nice curve. But if you color it in, no one can tell. Okay, so we've got one more letter in this half. Then let's take a little break and look at everything. So M is next. And M, we get to use a brand new stroke. We get to use the overturn stroke. So we're going to use, what is this? Orange. Very, very exciting color. And we're going to first, rather than doing an entrance stroke, we're going to go straight into the overturn. So this one's a little different. Boom, overturn. Now, we're going to do another overturn. And we're going to start it right here where this line ends. And we're not going to overlap it. We're just going to barely kiss the edge and create our second overturn. Just like that. Now you may be thinking, that's it, that's an M. But you are incorrect. The M also has a compound curve in it. So this part of the M is actually just the entrance. When we add our compound curve, just like that, we're going to connect it to the very tip of the bottom without overlapping. Come down into that compound curve. There's our full letter M. So, let's see how that looks with just one color. We're going to go overturn, lift our pen, overturn, lift our pen, and then compound curve. So there is an M. Now I'm going to just flip my page back so we can take a look at how everything is looking right now. So I'm really happy with this M. I think it's really pretty, and this K I think is really pretty too. Some of my letters I can see that like my spacing is a little odd. I'm seeing that in some of these letters that have a descending stem, my stem isn't quite going high enough, and so it looks a little cut off right here. Some people prefer it like that. I'm okay with it, but it's something I want to be mindful of. This J, in my opinion, is a lot more successful than this J because it's much closer to the center. I like my L's. I did a good job cleaning up this bottom, but I probably could have smoothed it out even more. So one of the main things I talked to you about in our last lesson was trying to maintain a consistent angle of your letters. So you can see that the angle of my sample letters is pretty consistently at this angle with where my pencil is right now. But some of my letters down here aren't exactly following that. Like the D, these D's are a bit more like this. This E is more like this, but this E is better. This F is alright. This F's okay. The G could stand to be slightly more tilted. H is looking pretty good though. I is looking alright. J is pretty good. K is pretty good. L is pretty good. And M. So really the main one I want to work on is the D. And the C. The C is pretty upright, but these two C's are more angled. So that's another thing you kind of want. If you're really interested in learning lettering, you should be stopping every now and then to ensure that all your letters are following the same angle. You can choose to do them at a slight oblique angle like this, like an italic, like I do, or you can choose to have all of your letters straight up and down. It's really a matter of preference. For me, I personally just love how angled letters look. I think they're really beautiful. That's why I choose to do it this way. But if you choose to do it straight up and down, that's totally great too. Okay, so we're halfway done. Are you tired? I am so tired. Just kidding. We can do this. Let's just flip to a new page and keep going through the alphabet. Alright, we're all set up with a fresh page. The second half of the alphabet. Okay, so the next letter, of course, is N. N is quite similar to M, and that we're first going to start with an overturn. So, doing a second overturn, which would turn this into an M, we're going to go right into our compound curve. So that's this green. And just like with the N or the M, we're not going to overlap this downstroke. We're just going to barely touch it when we start our compound curve. So there's our N. And then we do the all black version. Overturn, barely kiss the edge, right into our compound curve. Beautiful. I like M's and N's a lot. They're very soothing to write. Alright, our next letter is going to be O. And this one is going to start with our entrance stroke again, so we're going back to the old standby entrance stroke. And then we're going to do an oval, which shouldn't be too surprising. And then the oval is going to be a normal oval, okay? But we are going to slightly overlap. And then we're going to do a modified exit stroke, basically coming out from where we attached. We're just going to come back out so that we can connect another letter eventually. The shape of your exit stroke might vary depending on your style, but generally speaking, you want it to just angle out and up toward that midline. And you don't want it to come from down here, otherwise it'll look a lot like an A. So make sure it comes out from up here. So let's see what it looks like all in black. Do a little entrance stroke, oval, and then a nice exit stroke. I personally like how this one looks a little bit more. This one's a little straighter. There's barely a curve. This one has a nice little curve to it, so I kind of like this one. Okay, but again, play around, see what you like the best. So for P, we are going to start with our entrance stroke again. Just draw that on the page. And then we are going to do a descending stem loop. So we'll grab our beautiful ultraviolet color. And we're going to just do a standard descending stem loop. We can overlap the entrance stroke a little bit. Okay, that looks really nice. And then for the round part of the P, it's a lot like the B. We're going to do that reverse over again. So we'll start at the bottom, go a light upstroke, and then a heavy downstroke, and we'll connect them, okay? And you can see that it's not a perfect oval. Sometimes you have to kind of reach it forward to extend the letter out. And then we will follow it up by attaching an exit stroke to the front side of that modified oval. Okay, so when we put it all together, we're going to do an entrance stroke, descending stem loop, modified, reverse oval, and then an exit stroke. P's, in my opinion, are a little tricky to make look super elegant and nice, but they do have a lot of opportunity for adding style later on, so they're a really cool letter too. Alright, now we're moving on to Q, which is essentially the reverse of a P. So we're going to start with an entrance/exit stroke. And now, instead of doing a stem loop, we're going to do the oval first. So it's a normal oval. We're going to overlap our entrance stroke a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to do a descending stem loop, but it's going to be reversed. So it's the literal backward of this. Instead of coming back around like a J, we're going to go forward like a Q, okay? But we're still going to keep that line thin. instead of overlapping this oval, we're going to just barely touch the side of it. Okay, and then we'll add our exit stroke, just like that. Now I am noticing that my Q is slightly more vertical than the other letters, so when I add in this black version, I'm going to try to adjust the angle to more closely match the other letters. Entrance stroke with an overlapping oval, and then that descending stem modified, and then the exit stroke. So you can see I didn't fully close my oval, and I can just do that now. It's not a big deal. But you can see now this one's angled much more like the other letters. Okay, now moving on to R. This one always makes me laugh because I think about Billy Madison. Raise your hand in the comments if you love Billy Madison as much as I do. I love that part where he has to write in cursive on the blackboard, and she's giving him all these baseball terms, and then she gives him risotto, and he doesn't know how to do C's, so he makes them look a lot like weird R's. It's just really funny. But these R's are pretty similar to a cursive R, so they should probably be easy for you if you know cursive. We're going to start with an entrance stroke, and this one we definitely do want to go all the way to the line. And then the next part of the R is not a stroke. It's modified. It's a completely unique stroke. So once again, I will use black for that. And what we're going to do is we're just going to come above our line, and we're going to make a small, heavy pressure to light, like a tapering downstroke that goes to the right, almost like a apostrophe, but backwards, like an entrance single quotation mark kind of thing. And then the last part of the R is going to be an underturn. So we're going to connect the underturn right to that stroke, and it will serve as our exit stroke as well. It's a little bit easier with one color, I think, so let's go right into it. But again, I am going to stop my pen right here instead of going all the way up, because I want the downstroke of this to go kind of left past the top of that. And then we can attach the underturn. So you might notice that in this letter, this stroke comes past the midline, so the top of our underturn is slightly below midline, and that is perfectly fine. You can choose to keep the entire part of this above the line and connect your underturn at the midline, but I think this gives it a lot more character and elegance. So it's up to you. I would practice a few different ways and see which way you like best. So now we're going into S, which is another fairly irregular letter form. We'll start with the entrance stroke. But just like with the R, we have an irregular form, which is like the main body of the S. So like the R, we're going to start above the midline, and then we're going to create this S-shaped curve that comes forward and then back to connect to the original entrance stroke. So it does take some practice, but this is kind of what we're looking for. We want the top of it to be nice and thick and solid, but we want it to taper off as we curl back around to connect. And then we will add an exit stroke right off the front of it like that. Now there are a ton of variations of S's, but this one is probably the most classic representation and the most similar to like a cursive style S. In fact, this one that I just drew is even more cursive style. So you can choose to form it more of an S shape like this, or slightly less S shaped and curved. It really depends on your preference and your taste and what you're comfortable with. Let's try another one where I do more of that curve. So to me, this is a more like calligraphy style or like lettering style than cursive, which is, in my opinion, this one's more cursive, this one's more brush lettering style. But it's just my opinion. Alright, so now we're moving on to T. And T is going to start it's a modified underturn. We're going to be starting about midway between this top and midline, and we'll finish it like a normal underturn. So, but we do want to cross a little bit over the entrance stroke. So just like this. And then for the crossbar, there's no like crossbar stroke, so I will do that in black. Now, where you decide to put your crossbar is up to you, but I would strongly suggest putting it above the midline. It's going to be much easier to distinguish this as a T if your cross is a little higher up than midline. So now we can make our black T to the underturn crossbar. Oh, I'm running out of ink in my black. So U is a pretty simple letter. I'm going to start with an entrance stroke. And then we're going to be doing underturns again. This time they're normal underturns starting at the midline and slightly overlapping the entrance stroke. And now when we do our second, we're going to do a second underturn, but we're not going to overlap. We're just barely going to connect it to the very back end of the upstroke. So just like this. So that's a U. Let's see what it looks like all in one color. You can see it kind of overlap more of the line than I want to do in this U. Either way looks alright, but my preference is this style. So in the future I will practice leaving more space for my upstroke there. Okay, so next we're going to do V, and V starts with a compound curve, not an entrance stroke. So this is a tricky one to write in words because you have to anticipate it, but for now we'll just start with our compound curve. You can see that looks very similar to a cursive V. And then we're going to do a stroke very similar to what we did with the R. And we're going to do this little above the line kind of connecting stroke. So this is bigger than the R, but it's a really similar shape where it starts heavy and then tapers off. So before my black marker dies on me, let's try to get this alphabet finished out. So there's the V. Alright, so W is very similar to V. I'm sorry, W is kind of like a combination of U and V. So we're going to start with an entrance stroke. And then we are going to do two underturns just like the U. I'm going to overlap that entrance stroke, lift our pen, but then not overlap that stroke. And then, can you guess how we're going to connect the W? That's right, we're going to do a stroke just like with the V. Do a little connecting stroke like that. So we'll do W, entrance, overlap it with an underturn. Do not overlap it with the next underturn. Come slightly up and add your little connecting stroke. It's very similar to a cursive W. Alright, so we have three more letters. And X is one of the trickiest ones for me personally to write. But it should be okay. So the X basically is a compound curve with a crossbar. I typically like to make my compound curve for an X a little wider than normal, but I don't think you necessarily have to. So I'm just going to write this as like a normal compound curve, and there's no entrance stroke, just straight into the compound curve. And then we can make an irregular crossbar on that X. Now you want it to be a thin crossbar, so you can choose to draw it in an upward direction, or you can do it down, but you want to keep it thin. And I kind of like to go down below and then bring it back above the line. So let's see what that looks like all in black. Compound curve with this crossbar. You could also choose to do it as a compound curve with just like a small cross, or you could choose to do it as a compound curve with a straight full-length cross. Honestly, I don't like X's. I never think mine look good, so I usually just go for this because I think it's the most elegant looking, but I encourage you to play around with whatever you can find that works for you. Okay, so our second to last letter is Y, and that one also is going to start with a compound curve. So we're getting into some more exciting letters here. Compound curve. And then we're going to go into a descending stem loop with our purple. It's been a while. This is a standard descending stem. And we're not going to cover up too much of this upstroke. We'll just try to connect it to the very tip. And then you can choose to do a separate exit stroke. I've already lifted my pen, so I will do a separate exit stroke. Just like that. Or you can choose to connect your stem loop into the exit stroke, which I will do now. So compound curve. Try not to overlap it with our descending stem loop. And right into that exit stroke. So not too shabby. The last letter is going to start with an overturn. So this is C, and it's going to start with an overturn. So we'll just do a regular old overturn. And then now we're going to be doing kind of like a modified descending stem loop. Rather than being a straight stem, we're going to kind of go up for a little bit, but then we'll finish it out with what is a pretty normal descending stem. So rather than, we're not starting up here, we're starting down here at the base of this overturn. We're just going to come back up for like another mini overturn, and then we're going to finish it out in our descending stem. I've already lifted the pen, so I might as well do a separate exit stroke. But you can, like with the Y, you can just connect that right into the next stroke. So we'll do our overturn, and then like a modified like little mini overturn right into a descending stem loop, connect it to that exit stroke. I kind of like these. I think they're cool. Okay, so that is all 26 letters of the lowercase alphabet. Great job if you stuck with me and did all the letters. I'm really proud of you. I personally have so much fun seeing all the letters come together from the basic strokes. I hope you enjoyed it as well. This was like my biggest aha moment when I started lettering. It was like I was having trouble with the ascending stem loops until I wrote it in a D, and then I was like, oh my gosh, that's what it's about. I don't know. I hope maybe you've had a little moment of clarity like that, but if not, keep practicing, and hopefully all your work with the basic strokes will really pay off. Okay, so one question you might be wondering is, why on earth are we bothering with entrance strokes? Many of these letters look perfectly fine without them, and the answer to that question is simple. We practice entrance and exit strokes so that it's easier to anticipate our letter spacing when we start putting all the letters together to form words. So it's really important to be in the habit of starting your letter with a connection from a previous letter, which is exactly what we're doing by making the entrance and exit strokes. So I just want to say, please don't be discouraged if at this point your letters don't look perfect. Please keep practicing every day to help build that muscle memory, and you'll get a good feel for the letter forms. I promise you will see improvement. Let's get this out of here. In June, we will start putting our letters together to form words. I will show you some tricky letter connections and how to solve them, and I'll also teach you a really fun and pretty connective flourish that you can use all the time. And I'll also walk you through your very first sentence and some fun practice words. And then, so that'll be part 4. And then our final video, part 5, will come out sometime in July or August. Not quite sure right now, but it will be this summer. And in that video, I will show you some variations of style that I mentioned in earlier videos, such as bounce lettering, faux lettering, extra flourishes, and we might even do a fun and easy project that you could easily use for birthdays, holidays, or whatever. So, buckle up. We are officially more than halfway done with the series, but it only gets more exciting from here. I very much hope you enjoyed. I really love making these videos. So, until next